when they think of gut health, they think of digestive health. I mean, they think of immune system. Like I was aware that 80% of our immune cells are in the gut. The gut controls the brain.
Welcome back to the Ignition Path podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Goodknight. And before we get to our amazing guests, I just want to make sure that you like, subscribe, and share as you're listening to this, and the information that's going to be flowing from both of our mouths. If something resonates with you, please don't hesitate to leave a comment, ask us questions, get a hold of both myself and my guest. And if you hear something that resonates with you or you feel it resonates with someone you know, don't hesitate to hit that share button. Super easy on your phone. Most people can intake the content on their phones nowadays. Hit the share button, push it to them so they can get the same information. So from that, I'm going to introduce you to my amazing guest today, who is Dale Lassiere, right?
Yeah.
LaCure. Dale LaCure. I had problems with that the first time we met. And so that's just, I have problems with pronunciation of names that I don't hear very often. You should see how I butcher people's names when I'm in the back of the medic. So, oh well, I digress. So, Dale LaCure is my guest today. She is Amari Global, as a representative of Amari Global, has several amazing communities that I've actually been a part of. And I think we got introduced by Michelle, someone that I was in a networking event for, and she introduced me to about, 1,800 people in like a 3-minute period. It was crazy, but she was awesome. We had our first call, and we found that there's a lot of stuff that Dale and I want to help people with and get out to the world. And of course, Ignition Path podcast is all about talking about Dale's path, and then we'll go into her business a little bit later. But tell us who you are, Dale, and what you do, where you came from, how you became an entrepreneur, what you did prior to that, and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Kyle. I appreciate you having me and giving me the opportunity to share my passion and what I will do to the day I leave the planet, I always say. So I've been, in the past, a mom, basically. I have 5 kids. I have 4 grandbabies. I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. I would work on the weekends in catering and whatnot in between babies. But really my heart was to not have to report to someone. I always wanted to be my own boss. So it was about, oh boy, I think it was like 16 years ago. I found myself at my job on the weekend, and me and my boss didn't get along so great. So there was this one incident where he actually, threw a $5 bill at me. I was like,
what does that even mean?
That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
I can't even imagine what was behind that. I don't even want to know.
I mean, I was working in a catering hall. They didn't want us to put tip money out, blah, blah. Yeah. So anyway, I remember it was so clear, like it was yesterday. I ran around the back of the building. I called my husband. I was like, I am so done with this. And I had just been introduced to the industry of network marketing. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I wanted to be home. I missed everything. I was always working every single weekend, especially in that industry. So my husband was like, go for it, And so, like I said, had just been introduced to the industry actually by my chiropractor. I've always been into health and wellness, and he was, promoting this health and wellness cleansing product at the time. I had phenomenal results, and I decided I'm going to do this. I've always been passionate about health and wellness. Kind of to go back a little bit in my story, but I think it's interesting. When I was 10 years old, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. He was given a year to live. At the time, I'm the youngest of 7, and my mother never worked. So it was quite devastating. But my dad sought out alternative treatments, and he ended up finding a doctor who was doing alternative stuff. Actually in the upstate New York area. And he got on the protocol and lived another 40 years. So at that point,
wow,
I was 10 years old, and it made a huge impact on me. And so I raised my kids all holistic. I used acupuncture and chiropractors and supplements and all of the things. I guess you could call me a crunchy mom, but I've always really believed in that. I believe in nature. I believe in our body's ability to heal itself. And so I was really, really excited about the industry and the opportunity to not only share what I love, health and wellness, but to also be able to make income from home. And the network marketing industry is an incredible industry for that. In fact, like 82% of women that earn six figures do it in this industry.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty incredible industry.
Yeah, I've been a part of it, sprinkled out through my whole entire adult life. My mom and dad, they were part of the Amway days. I mean, I got into my entrepreneurialism very honestly because of mom and dad. They had Amway. They did a couple of other things, I was a kid during then, so I didn't really get it. But I guess once I got to be a teenager, I remember my dad being a part of a group. I think it was called Initech or something, but it had all these huge, big name speakers coming into Columbus, and I got to go to the airport and drive them to the convention center and be kind of like a behind the scenes helper. So it all came very natural to me. It never felt weird to me to be a part of some form of network marketing throughout my whole life. My wife and I sold Scentsy for many years. We've done doTERRA. Like, we've done the things that interest us, and never really did a bunch of like pounding the pavement at it. We just kind of did it very for our purposes. And then when people asked us about it, we would, share the information. We never did a lot of crazy stuff, but 100%, both of us believe in chiropractic. I wouldn't call myself, well, what did you call yourself? The crunchy mom? I wouldn't call myself a crunchy dad, but I remember my mom and dad being more health conscious, and my wife and I are very health conscious. Doesn't mean that we don't eat like crap at times, but we do our best to try to be as healthy as possible. Supplements is probably the one area that we both, she's getting better at them, for obvious reasons that we've spoke of in the past because of our age, but her and I's age. But I've never really been one to do much on supplements. I don't know why. But I'm always open to hear more about the different things that are out there. But yeah, so that's another reason why you and I get along real well, is we both come from some of the same background and understand each other's world a little bit.
Yeah, the industry has changed a lot. It really has. I mean, I think people unfortunately have an image of like that hard sell, that push, and we really, I guess there are some network marketers that still do that, but I feel like we're more about sharing value, right, and sharing information and being educators. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just such important information. Like I said, I'll do this till the day I leave the planet. So I was with another company for 10 years prior to being with Amari.
Okay.
And I was at a marketing conference to learn how to build more online. Mm-hmm. And I met a woman there who had just left another company to join with the mental wellness company, Amari, which had just launched. And when I heard about it, I was like, the mental wellness company, tell me more. And so I was hounding her at the conference. I was like, you got to tell me more about this, because at the time, my daughter was struggling. She was having panic attacks. She was really, really depressed. She was just full of anxiety. She was in college and things were crazy, right?
Yeah.
So I was just blown away by the information that she was giving me. I was like, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
In the industry my whole life, never heard of mental wellness and the gut-brain axis. Like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
So I just went all in, just learn and learn and learn, and actually went out to meet the company. And I ended up hearing other stories, listening to the formulator, just learning. And I was just like, wow, this feels more like more of a responsibility to me to share this information. And I ended up leaving my other company and just jumping in with this brand new company, which was over 6 years ago now.
Right. Well, and so much more information is so easy to gather compared to back in the day, and I say back in the day, I know I look young and sprite, but I'm 52. I mean, I remember no internet. I remember phones on the wall. I don't, I lived through that. I'm sure there's a name. I mean, I know they call us Gen X for me. But we lived through all of that. We remember the clicker that you actually, the reason why the TV changed is because it was a loud click and not because of a radio signal. So like, I remember all that stuff, and it's just so much different. Like the information now that we can get on multiple different areas of not only our mental health, but our mental wellness, our self-wellness, our self-awareness, medical, alternative medical thoughts and alternative and studies, and like, you used to have to go to a library to pull up an article to read a study about the statins. And now you can go to a YouTube channel or a webpage and read the entire study about what they found about statins and whatnot. So, it's just one of those things where I think part of it is we are living in a world that is so much more information. And sometimes that can be a little too much too, like, wow, which one do I choose? So, you mentioned, you kind of sprinkled it in there, and it was actually where I want to take this conversation for now, is the gut health. That's one thing that I feel that myself and so many people, even though I know it's important, I don't know what the reason is. I haven't had the dire, oh my gosh, I've got to do this for myself, need to understand what that means. So talk a little bit more about, what it is to be gut healthy, why it's important, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Yeah, I think you're right in that people don't, when they think of gut health, they think of digestive health. I mean, they think of immune system. Like, I was aware that 80% of our immune cells are in the gut, but I was not aware that the gut controls the brain. So it's just fascinating. So, for example, 90% of serotonin, which is our feel-good neurotransmitter, is created in the gut. 70% of dopamine, which is another neurotransmitter that helps us to feel motivated, is also created in the gut. And there's many others, hormones as well. So it just makes sense that if the gut is not getting what it needs, it's not able to produce those neurotransmitters. So, for example, if someone is consuming a ton of sugar, that will create a lot of bad bacteria in the gut. So you're not going to produce those other signals. You're going to produce sugar, which is very addictive. What your body is saying, give me more, give me more. It's like the signal is give me more.
Yeah, I think sugar is either number 1 or 2, right behind caffeine, of the most addictive product out there. So yeah. I don't want to call it a drug, but I mean, it's essentially what it is.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, the gut is just way more, it rules our entire body, our physical wellness and our emotional wellness. So that's why, with my daughter, when she got on the protocol, it was like this light bulb went off, and all of a sudden she was like, I feel really different, like within a few days. But then the roller coaster ride started just to be up front here. It wasn't a straight, I feel great now. It was, I feel great. Oh crap, I don't feel great. Like, it was like a roller coaster ride. And then I went and met and listened to the formulator, went to see him do a presentation. I was like, what is going on with my daughter? Like, why is she having ups and downs during this rebuilding of the gut? And he was like, because she's having basically like the peeling of an onion. It's kind of like an emotional detox in a sense. So it sounds really, really crazy and kind of like out there. But she said to me, my daughter, when I think about, because she had some PTSD as well, and she said to me, when I think of what happened to me, I don't feel the same. It was like, whoa, that is so, like, that just proved to me that.
Like, it's just packaged, it's packaged differently or something. Yeah.
Like, our bodies hold on to
the trauma.
Stress.
And trauma, yeah.
Separate the body and the mind.
Right.
So it was just a clear signal to me. And then in our group that I mentioned to you and you have seen, you'll see a lot of stories like that. Like, especially moms that had like postpartum rage, or, people with PTSD, and just all sorts of imbalances that not necessarily show themselves in terms of like a digestive imbalance, although we put that in there as well, but will show up in, just different emotional imbalances or dysregulation.
Right.
So it's just fascinating to me. I mean, I learned more and more. I got certified as a mental wellness coach. So I studied, with Marietta College and our formulator. So I'm learning more. I mean, it's just endless, the information that's coming forth in terms of, the gut microbiome and how important it is.
When, something you mentioned early on when it comes to gut health and how people think of it as being digestive health. And then you see products that are out there like a probiotic and they're like, oh, ease your digestion. So then so some of the marketing already puts people in the thought process that gut health means digestive health. So when it comes to like a probiotic, my wife's always on me, here, take a probiotic. Like I was a little under the weather over the weekend. I think I had some bad coleslaw from a restaurant because everybody else was fine. I'm the only one that ate the coleslaw, and I spent 24 plus hours not feeling well. And we won't go into detail as we all, as long as I always live by this rule that somebody told me way back when in the hospital, when all of a sudden the conversation seemed to turn to, poop. Eventually every conversation turns to poop. But I digress on that. But I didn't feel great for a while. And she's like, here, have a probiotic. And I'm like, what's one probiotic going to do? And in general, talk about like a probiotic and what that does for you. And the I don't know, what I feel, one probiotic in the middle of a sickness is like spitting into a hurricane, in my opinion. But I took it nonetheless because at the time, I don't care. I want to feel better. So talk about probiotics compared to like gut health and what role they play, if any. Okay.
So probiotics is like you see it everywhere now, right? You see it everywhere. And like you said,
it's in yogurt. Yeah. A probiotics in yogurt. Yeah. I mean, we all know that yogurt has good cultures, blah, blah, blah.
So probiotics, that's what our products contain. But the difference is there are many, many strains and species of probiotics.
Okay.
So there are probiotics that are specific for digestive health. So the goal and what makes a happy gut is to have a diversity of different strains and species of probiotics. So probiotics, you don't just go to a store and pick out a probiotic. You need to know what you're looking for that probiotic to do in the body. So the strains and species that we use in the mental wellness company have been clinically studied to target mental wellness. So, studied to decrease anxiety, to increase, serotonin, to decrease cortisol, so there's specific ones that do specific things. And our bodies need a lot of different ones. So that's the idea, is to get a diverse plane in your gut.
Right.
So a question that I did not answer that you asked me, I apologize.
No worries.
Was what creates this dysbiosis or imbalance in the gut? So basically, like high stress levels will put your body into a very, very high state of cortisol, like too much cortisol, like fight or flight state. When you're in that state, your body produces a lot of the bad bacteria, and it will not produce a lot of serotonin. So the cortisol is like fighting to produce the serotonin. You know what I'm saying? So you can't have really high stress levels and produce a lot of serotonin. So what our products do will lower that cortisol level, which will then increase more serotonin. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, once again, it's a gut balance. So
right. Like high stress levels, like medications, like antibiotics that are destroying not only the bad bacteria, but the good bacteria. So that's why they say take a probiotic after you've taken an antibiotic. You want
I knew that. I knew. Yeah. Like my daughter got real sick when she was younger, and she was on some heavy antibiotics. They thought she was septic and had blood infection. It ended up being something different, but they flooded her with all this antibiotics. And of course, 30 days later, she had the issue of stripping all of her, all of the gut biome away, which caused its own problems. Would had to make you get on a different antibiotic to try to build that back. So yeah. So I do, my wife and I are both medical, so we have some knowledge of that kind of stuff in general, and the stuff that does that. Now, when it comes to gut health and the biome, what are some common signs or symptoms that one may be able to do a self-assessment to see if they're compromised? I mean, most likely nobody's gut health is just automatically good unless you're focused on it. But what are some signs of when you need to do something about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So many things are a sign of gut dysbiosis, some of which will be very, you'll be surprised to hear. Skin issues are definitely a sign of gut dysbiosis. Allergies.
Like eczema?
Yes. Eczema, any kind of skin issue.
I've never had eczema in my life.
Eczema is a big one.
I don't know why there, but I'm like, that looks like eczema. That's not a scratch or I wear a bracelet.
Yeah.
But that didn't scrape that. I'm like, what is going on?
Anything that's on the skin is a reflection of what's going on the inside.
Gotcha.
So skin is a huge one. Allergies is another one. Huge. So many people. It's basically like the gut is out of balance. The immune system is on hyper alert, which is it's not supposed to be that way. So that's also autoimmune, like when the body's on like hypersensitive. That shows us that's a sign of gut dysbiosis. Not sleeping well, anxiety, depression. It really everything, and that's the thing that's so fascinating when you go in the group, you see like all these different things, and it's like this is all the same protocol. Like it's all going back to the root cause.
Right.
It's the gut, which I'm all about. Get to the root cause.
Yeah. And that'll be very interesting. I cannot wait to, before we hit record, you mentioned that there's someone that I introduced you to that you're going to be meeting with later today, matter of fact, because he helped me tremendously. I purchased his program. He's my sponsor now. I have an affiliate sponsorship with him for my show, and he focuses on, anxiety, procrastination, self, that if you don't feel like you're good enough, people pleasing, like he focuses on that through, it's not through nutrition, but I know he doesn't think nutrition isn't important. I know he feels that's important, but that's not his major role with it. So it'll be very interesting for the two of you. And that's why I got the two of you together, because I really think that the two of you could have some sort of super PAC when it comes to, okay, you've got the nutrition side of it and gut health side of it, and he's got the other side of it that you have to do some work inside of your own thought processes and some of your own understanding of where you come from and where you came from and how you address those old thoughts and feelings. And so it'll be very interesting to hear how you guys come up with how you can help each other out. But with that being said, once I did say that he's my sponsor, I'm going to go ahead and break to him the commercial that I've made for him for this session. Then we're going to come back, and I've got a couple other questions for you, and we'll go from there. So right now we'll hear from my sponsor. Let me ask you a question. Would your life be better if whatever you're struggling with, you could finally break free of? So what am I talking about? The Funky Five. What's the Funky Five, you ask? It's those oh-so-familiar struggles: procrastination, people-pleasing, perfectionism, low self-confidence, and the one I call the big A, anxiety. For years, I struggled to manage my own version. I call them my Funky Three. I had 3 of these Funky Five weighing me down. I've tried just about everything to deal with them. Then a guest on my podcast, Daniel Packard, shared with me a profound thought that I had never thought of. So Daniel, a UC Berkeley engineer, spent 8 years working with this team and over 3,000 people to create an approach that doesn't just help you manage these issues. It actually frees you from them by getting right to the root of what's holding you back. So after meeting with Daniel, I decided to give it a shot, and within 6 short weeks, gone. Truly gone. I was so amazed. The number one thing I was dealing with was procrastination. But miraculously, a deeper-rooted struggle with people-pleasing, something I'd been unknowingly battling for a lifetime, lifted entirely. And the anxiety that came with them both, gone as well. Are you tired of battling any of your funky fives? People-pleasing, procrastination, perfectionism, low self-confidence, and the biggest happy killer of them all, the A word, anxiety. Imagine how much better life would be if you weren't just managing these things, but free of them, quickly and yes, permanently. If you're ready for a real solution, head to danielpackard.com and get his free 90-minute training. Daniel himself will walk you through what makes his approach so different and teach you a technique you can use immediately to start feeling the difference. So if any of the Funky Five, or maybe your own version of the Funky Five, are holding you back, don't wait. Visit danielpackard.com. You can truly get results and start living the life you want. Okay, and we're back with Dale LeCure. Once again, Daniel Packard is an amazing gentleman. He's helped me so much with everything that his program does. Don't hesitate to give him a call. Get that free 90-minute session from him. It could be life-changing for you. And, of course, you know, that may be something that Dale and him can come up with later here. That's like, it's kind of weird that the crossroads are now coming in one episode. But nonetheless, we're back with Dale LeCure and talking about Amari Global and gut health and how important it is. And I did have another question about gut health that I wanted to make sure I asked.
Can I just respond to Daniel Packard?
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to meeting him. But I always say, you know, it's never one thing.
Right. But I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, you can't just, you know, take supplements and
think that everything's fine. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But what I love about starting with a gut, you know, protocol is that we'll give you the strength and the stress resilience to do the deeper work. And that's what we see. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And there is some deep, with his program, there's definitely some deep work. But if you're not feeling, I mean, there were times when, and he does address it in there. I know that at one point in time, he's like, you know what? If you don't do a couple of things that you're supposed to do on a daily basis, just get back into it. Don't beat yourself up. Just jump back in, you know, and that kind of thing. So that roller coaster that you're talking about, anytime you're trying to transform yourself, I mean, and I faced this with some mental health issues from my first responder days. Not days, I'm still a first responder. My first responder mental health crisis that I faced is, yes, the day that I felt as low as I felt ever, I got help. I raised my hand, never been shy about it. I'm like, I need to talk to my mentor. I don't know what's going on. I don't feel like I'm going to hurt myself, but I don't feel right. So let me reach out to them. That through that conversation was a very big low that at the end of the conversation was, okay, there's hope. And then I got a hold of the people that she suggested I get a hold of. But between that period of time, there was another dip, and then I got help. And then there's, you know, and then it's almost like this wave that comes up and up and up until you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm actually dealing with things better. I actually can deal with this situation again. I actually understand it better now. I understand the reason why it affected me. That's another thing that a professional that can help you sort through things that are bugging you and things that are messing with you. They can help you find the root cause. And when I found my root cause, it was a game changer. I see it because everybody knows what my trigger is now. Carbon monoxide poisoning is a trigger for and I run on carbon monoxide, people. I do, and I will in my career. The next time I have one, I don't know how it's going to affect me. I think I know how it's going to affect me. I'm going to feel horrible about it, but I'm not going to have that deep low. I'm going to be able to understand why I feel horrible about it. And it was all stemmed on something that happened to a friend of mine when I was a child that scarred me for life that I didn't even know scarred me. It was subconscious. And that's the kind of thing, like if you can focus on the gut and getting that in balance, that if that has the serotonin levels to level things out, it makes so much sense because all that stuff you're talking about is real. Like that is not voodoo medicine or like you call the crunchy medicine. Like you're not the crunchy mom when you say, well, hold on a second, serotonin and, you know, and cortisol and other things that affect your mood and affect your heart rate and affect your well-being. Like we know darn well that breath work can help you regulate your heartbeat because it's science. That stuff is science that you're now using probiotics of whatever genre to help level that out. All that stuff is science and it can be proven. Yeah. The body does keep the score. If you've never read the book, people that are listening, if you've never read the book, The Body Keeps Score, read that book, because that is the truth. And when you said something earlier, but that the body remembers, it made me think of that book, and it keeps the score. And if you don't have your whole body in check, it's going to remember. And even when your brain doesn't, until it's time.
Right. Right. I mean, you just can't deny the physiological piece of it. And if you're in a better state of health, your nutrition is on point, your sleep is on point, you got your gut stuff working better, like you're just going to be more inclined to have the resilience to deal with going deep.
Right.
And finding those pieces that you need to heal on, and now you're aware of it, right? That's where it starts. You got to be aware of it. So sounds like, he does that work where he's identifying this is when this event happened that's triggering you. So that is just so
part of it. Yeah.
Much good work.
Yep. Yep. And that's, and luckily I knew a lot of that stuff going in, but I didn't know how to organize it, and that's what helped me, was the organization of that. When it comes to, like, let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, man, it makes sense, this gut health thing. I've heard about it before. And there's a protocol out there because I don't know where to turn to. Like, tell us how someone were to get started, to start either one, learning the right things. Not just going to TikTok and finding gut health videos. Don't get me wrong. I know darn well, because you've turned me on to a couple of your group members that run amazing TikToks, and they've got good information. But when it comes to how does someone that wants to start diving into this, what is your suggestion for their first start? Like a one-on-one with you, or go look this, or go read this book, like something where do you tell people to get started?
So I love to do one-on-ones, but I feel like I kind of have to build the trust first in order for someone to want to do that. And I think that people need to hear and see other stories, like other, experiences that people have had when they've gotten their gut back in balance with our protocols. So I like to invite people into our community on Facebook. I think there's like almost 60,000 people in there, which goes to show me that people are looking for natural solutions. They're looking for ways to feel better emotionally. I mean, it goes without saying there's a lot of stress, unfortunately, in this world right now. And we have to just keep ourselves strong to be able to deal with it, right? So I like to invite people into the community. I'll tag them in a few of the posts that that have to do with kind of what they're looking for or what they're experiencing. And then I love to just hop on a Zoom and just be like, hey, tell me more. Like, what are your top priorities right now? Because you got to start somewhere. And then I'll recommend a protocol and we get going. I keep in touch with everybody. And that's how we do it.
Great. And where do they find that out? Like, where do they find that community? Is it closed, or is it public, or do they have to answer questions?
It's closed. It's a private group because people are sharing their, vulnerability and their intimate stories. So I would invite them in.
So it's not somewhere, if I put a link to the Facebook group, that doesn't automatically get them in there. Can they at least, what's the best way for someone to start the process of getting into that group to hear the stories? Right.
So the best way would be to reach out to me in Messenger.
Okay.
And then I would send, we would connect, friend requests kind of thing, and then I can invite them into the community.
Okay, great. All right. Real quick, if there's anything else that you want to share with us that's coming up for you, I always, the Ignition Path podcast is not only to hear about your path through entrepreneurialism, and your business right now, but to talk about what's coming up so people can, maybe learn more on their own time and their own pace. Maybe they're not comfortable going into a group yet, but they want to hear more. A YouTube page or a podcast that you may have that they can go start just getting that information, or more information that's longer than the 30-minute conversation that Kyle and Dale are doing right now.
Yes. So I do have a YouTube page, a channel, and I share testimonials, live interviews that I've done, as well as just information that I'm bringing forth about products and the industry as well.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put that all in the show notes, of course. So, Dale, tell me about when it comes to someone that may want to do something good for themselves by getting on a probiotic or a system or a protocol, but they're not quite ready to change their diet. Like someone, like, let's take, for example, my son, 23 years old, who doesn't feel that, drinking 3 sodas a day is a big deal. Like I didn't when I was 23. I mean, I drank soda all the way up until about, I don't know, early 2000s. And then I stopped having it in the house, period. And that doesn't mean that I don't drink soda, but I just don't, it's just not there to constantly call me back. But like, talk to me a little bit about like someone who is in that stage, like they're not in crisis. They're not, they don't understand, their brain's not fully developed. And you mentioned something right before we started talking about this. You said something about teenagers. And I mean, of course, he's not a teenager, but it's not fully developed yet up there. I mean, like any male is ever, but, but when it comes to what do you do about people that are like, man, I don't want to change what I do?
I love this question. Because what is so fascinating is once you start to give the gut those strains that are going to produce the neurotransmitters, people have different ideas of what they want to eat.
Interesting.
Like, it's amazing. Like I've had moms that have said, like, I can't get my kids to eat vegetables. They get on the protocol and they're like asking for vegetables. It's crazy, but it's true. Same thing, because it's gonna reduce the cravings for sugar because it's bringing in good bacteria. And people are like, I don't have the cravings for sugar anymore. Like, this is so weird. Like the gut talks to the brain.
Yeah.
So the beauty of it is, of course we want everyone to pay attention to their diet and all that stuff. But if they're not going to do that and they'll do this, like, it's a great starting point.
Wow.
And then just see how it all unfolds. Because when someone feels better, they have more energy, they have more mental clarity, they instinctively know, like, that can of soda doesn't make me feel good. So they're like more in touch with their body, but they're also getting different signals from the gut.
So is it something where you're not really forcing them to change their diet cold turkey? You just say, hey, add this in. And then as you add this in, things will change. You'll stop craving the sugars. You'll stop craving, the need for all this other stuff. So, okay, that makes sense. I didn't realize that that's what it does. Yeah.
Yeah, because your energy is going up, right? When people are really low energy and they just don't feel good mentally, they have like brain fog, which is typically from a lot like a poor diet kind of thing. Once they start feeling better, they're like, I don't really want that.
Great.
Interesting.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad I asked that question. So I appreciate that.
Okay. It's a great question.
Yes. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, whenever you're listening to this, middle of the morning. I know I've listened to plenty of podcasts and when I can't sleep. But Dale, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been a pure pleasure to get to know you over the last couple of weeks. Actually, it's been about a month now since I think I first met you and how we had our first introductory call. So I know that you're going to be doing great things. I want to be a part of that to help you grow your business, and that you know what I do and want you to help me in any way that you can. I just like this collaboration, and health and wellness is a big part of my background in general. I'm a server at heart. When it comes to being a paramedic and a respiratory therapist, that's just my DNA. So when I'm done and retired in 8 years, I need to be able to do something that still serves. So doing something like this and having a podcast that brings information to people as we start building this community and this podcast, it'll be great for people to have this and be able to listen to it for years to come. So appreciate you so much for coming on. Everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Share this with someone that you may feel that needs to hear this information, or give myself a call or an email. All my information, along with Dale's, will be in the show notes. Don't hesitate to reach out and touch base with us. Dale, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all you do.
I appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Ignition Path, fueling the entrepreneurial fire.